Hello everybody. Today I would like to show you how to create a very simple computer game using Claude.ai. It's quite a new feature. It was only released a couple of days ago and it's in Claude 3.5. The important thing is you need to set up an account at Claude.ai. To do that, you will need an email address and you will need a phone number that you can use to verify your account. Once you log in, you will now see the option here about new artifacts. And this is important because this is the one that you're going to have to use to create your game. So go and say, try it out, and then turn on artifacts. You can later turn it on and off on the feature preview, and you have the option of turning it on or off. So what is the little game we want to create today? Well, it's going to be a scroller game. So I want things to sort of scroll in from the right of the screen. And I want a little robot character then to jump over rocks and pick flowers. So the first thing we have to do is to tell Claude what we want to do. So I will paste it in here. So it's going to be a very simple game. I'm telling it it's a scrolling game, and I'm telling it I want rocks and flowers. I want my main character, Chipper. It doesn't know it's a robot yet. Later, I will actually explain to Claude that I want it to be a robot, and it has to jump over rocks and pick the flowers. I want smooth animation, and if it crashes into a rock, we need animation that'll make it look like an explosion. And when a flower is picked, the flower should disappear from view, and we should get 1 point. And because I've tried this before, and I had some trouble with creating images for the robot, the rocks, and the flower, I'm going to tell it to use SVG. SVG of generating images with vector graphics. So you can play around with it on the line. There's lots of tools. You can create your own SVGs. But for now, let us just tell Claude that's what we want to use. And you can see at the bottom, it's Claude version 3.5. And this is what's new today. These are the artifacts. And on the right-hand side, you can see it is now writing the code for our little game. And it's not going to be perfect first time around, so we're going to have to tweak it a little bit. But as a first try, we have our character. It can jump, and the flowers and the rocks don't look particularly nice. So we're going to have to do some improvements over here. In fact, this is a pretty bad first start. I've had some much better ones. The important thing is your code is over here. And it's written in React, which is kind of a JavaScript. And you have your preview option here. The thing that took me a while to figure out is if I try and make improvements by telling Claude what I want, it doesn't always generate all the code. It will just give you sometimes the pieces that have changed, and you would need to cut and paste yourself. That took me a while to figure out because it just kept crashing on me every time I tried to make changes, and I didn't realize that it was not giving me all the code. It was just giving me some updates that I had to then handle myself. So let's see. We really don't like the way that it's working at the moment. Let's assume those yellow dots are flowers and the gray things are the rocks. Yeah, that's not great. So why don't I tell it a little bit more of what I have in mind? So I'm going to draw it the way I want my flowers to look. I'm just going to use a very simple sort of a draw tool here. And I'm going to say I want my flower to have a stalk, some leaves, and then maybe something like this. And of course, you can take an image. You can take a photo of what you want the flower to look like. And that's a very, very, very simple idea. I'm going to do a screen capture of this, just using the snipping tool. And I'm going to go back to Claude and tell it that's kind of what I want my flower to look like. Improve the code to make a flower look more like this. It won't do it exactly like that because it's really low graphics that we're playing around with, but it gives it an idea of what I'm interested in. While the game is still small, it does seem to sort of give you a lot of the code, but as soon as your game gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it has limitation on the number of characters, and at some point it will just stop, and it won't even give you all the code. It just sort of stops there, and you have to tell it exactly what you want it to do. Okay, so my flowers are looking way better. My rocks are not looking particularly great. So let's do a couple of other improvements. Why don't I draw a picture of what I want the rocks to look like? So my rocks are going to be really ugly. It's just going to look something like this. And of course I can add a little bit of color, but again, it's not going to interpret this too literally. And my main character, Chippy, I want it to be a robot. So I'm going to draw a really, really rough robot. I'm going to give it 2 legs, 2 arms, and a square little head. Let's add a couple of LEDs and see what Claude does with this. And this time I'm going to actually make Claude interpret the images I've given it. And say, I want the rocks and the main character to look as follows. I'm pressing Shift Enter, which will give me a new line without actually committing. So, and then do Control V, I'm just pasting the image in there. And now I'm going to tell it that Chippy is my robot, is a robot, and is the main character. Keep an eye on the code and check whether it's giving you full code or whether it's just giving you updates. It's done a decent job. So now we have problems with the jumping, right? So we need to improve the jumping. I'm pressing the space bar. My rocks look reasonably well. My flowers, I actually like my flowers quite a lot. And there you are. From my ugly sketch, we have a little robot. Let's improve the game further. Let's say add sliders to control the following. And of course, when you are doing these kind of things, you can never type properly. I want flower sliders for the distance between rocks, the speed of scrolling. Let us say the size, height, and width of my rocks, and the height that Chippy can jump. I'm on a free account of Claude here, so I'm not sure exactly how much it's going to allow us. So let's see how far we get. And there you go. It's added some controls for us. So let's make the distance between rocks more. Let's make it scroll a little slower. And you can see immediately it was updating and behaving. Okay, so still a bit of a mess. It's not refreshing the screen properly. And yeah, it's not great, right? But not a bad start. So I want to make it jump higher as well. Okay, so let's tell it what's wrong. The screen is not refreshing properly. So, let's see, what else can we tell it? Let's see. This is interesting, actually. It looks here like it's generating a web page. When I was doing it on the Pro version, the paid version, it was doing it in React. And I'm not really a programmer, so I'm not sure I can tell when it's one language or another. Okay, that looks much better. So now my jumping is just not working anymore. So everything else looks a lot better. And oh, that's interesting. It's starting to jump better now. I need to tell it that if it crashes into a rock, then the game is over. Notice I'm supposed to get points for picking flowers. Let's see. 1, 2, there we go. And it keeps going back to 0. So let's tell it that every time I pick a flower, I should get a point. Every time I miss a flower, it should deduct a point, and it shouldn't go back to 0 when I hit into a rock. If we hit a rock, the game is over. Shift Enter. If we pick a flower, we get 1 point, but if we miss a flower, we deduct a point. But we cannot have less than 0 points. Okay, let's try that. Oh, okay, well, I'm obviously not very good at my own game, so let's try this again. Okay, now it's not resetting it properly, so we wanted to reset the game automatically when it crashes. And let's see, what else can we improve? It should give a little bit of a description of the game so that people know how to play the game. Please add a way to restart the game after it crashes, or not, after it's over. Also show the rules of the game. You can see here now we are hitting some limitations with the free version. Let's try that. Okay, so we've hit the limit with the free version, but you can see we've got a semi-working game. You can refresh it here. That should restart it. And of course, you can only play the game now within Claude itself. In a separate video, I'll show you how to deploy this. Let's practice our jumping. Oh, no, jumping is not working properly anymore. Let's make the jump much higher. Okay. Practice, practice, practice. And my jumping is again on. Oh, you can see it's resetting it to 0. So we could tell it how to increase the default value for the jump. If you know a little bit of code, then you can go in here and you can set the defaults yourself. You can find the way, here, for example, a default rock sizes and a height, etc. So you can play around a little bit. And let's make the jump height. In fact, it doesn't let you edit it here. So like I said, in another video, I'll show you how to deploy this on a website, for example. We'll go through a code development tool there where you can actually update things like this yourself. But if you haven't run out of credits like I have now, then you could have just told it you want this to be a default of 200, and it should add that for you. Okay, so let's try one more time. And my jump height should now be more. Let's put the speed slower. And the distance between the rocks more. And then maybe I'll survive a little longer. So in this case, I mean, Claude.ai, it's me that's doing a bad job. Let me show you one that I've done earlier on the paid version. And in this one, I actually survived slightly longer. We'll just practice our jumping a little. And, oh, I'm going to crash. There we go, I've crashed. There you go, we've got our first game. And that just took a couple of minutes to do. I hope you're a better player than I am. Thank you for watching.